My name's Steve Dunn. I'm chairman of the Brighter Group. It's my great pleasure to be chairing and moderating our session today, which is a masterclass in building a wellness business or a wellness destination, a masterclass in wellness. Now, millions of consumers are seeking retreat in destinations that offer an environment where, through a combination of authentic offerings, they choose to enhance their well-being, expand themselves, and even transform their lives. And according to a report first published at the Global Wellness Summit, which I think was last year, in terms of US dollars, the global wellness sector is now said to be worth an eye-popping $3.4 trillion, which is an enormous sum of money. Famously, the quote is that is in fact 3 times bigger than the worldwide pharmaceutical industry. So it's a huge industry already on our doorstep. Indeed, the sector, the wellness sector, is being hailed as one of the fastest growing sectors in the world by business commentators across the globe. And the Centre for Science, Technology and Economic Development, SRI, and one of the report's lead researchers argued that they only see more growth ahead. Let me quote from their report. It says, and I quote, "Prevention challenged traditional healthcare systems and an obesity and chronic disease crisis are simply costing people and governments too much." So it's a very good bet that the double-digit annual growth rates across the wellness sectors tracked these last few years will continue as more people proactively change the way they eat, exercise, travel, and live. And more governments are inevitably forced to shift more money to the prevention side of the medical equation. And here in the travel and tourism industry, where the hunt is very much always on for the next big thing in terms of specialisms and focus for destinations and travel businesses, the wellness sector is creating quite a big interest. Almost 90% of travel agents expect their wellness business to grow this year, according to a recent survey. The annual Spa Finder Wellness 365 report, which collates answers from about 200 agents in North America and Europe, showed the highest percentage of travel agents in the survey's 8-year history expecting a rise in bookings. Other figures in the same report included 80% of the agents saying awareness of the sector is growing significantly amongst consumers. 52% say that, now just bear with me here, there's a lot of stats here. 52% say that just 20% of their wellness sales are spa-focused bookings, and 83% of agents say consumers are willing to pay a travel premium for wellness travel, which is obviously music to the ears of tour operators, agents, hotels, and of course everyone else included with destinations as well. So, from hotels to tour operators, from cruise lines to tourism boards, everyone, it seems, wants to know more about wellness, and in particular, how to build a wellness offering that can harness the power of this growing sector. Now, there are some critical aspects to the success of a wellness business. Your culture, branding, experiences that are on offer, communication to the consumer and the marketplace, and your own infrastructure will all play a very important role. So to find out some of the secrets behind creating a wellness product offering and harnessing the power of this sector, we've assembled 4 of the leading lights of the wellness sector. But they've all got a very different take on the sector. They've all got a very different set of skills. First on the panel is Alistair Herbert. Alistair is founder of Lingua Brand, a verbal identity consultancy that connects a brand's voice to its customers' emotional buying triggers. This is a fascinating area of how to communicate with the market and resonate with the consumers. Alistair's worked extensively in travel, including destinations, hotels, national states, airlines, and cruising. Lingua Brand worked on the hugely successful, and you may remember this, Stories Are Waiting campaign for Eurostar, turning a simple train operator into the owner of an emotional relationship between London and Paris. We're also joined by Peter Rowlands. Peter is Director of Marketing and Communications for Therma Bath Spa and Gainsborough Bath Spa. Peter has extensive knowledge and practical experience within the tourism, leisure and hospitality industries. After working for major tour operators in Europe and the Far East, he entered destination marketing when he was head of tourism in Cheltenham Spa, and more recently as tourism and marketing manager for the Bath Tourism and Conference Bureau. Peter started working for Therma Development Company in 2002 and is the Director of Marketing and Communications at Therma Bath Spa and the recently opened Gainsborough Bath Spa, both of which are fed by the UK's only natural thermal waters. We're also joined at the end of our line there by Gaurav Sinha, who's one of the leading brand strategists in the market and is famous for his innovative thinking in the field. Based in Dubai for the past 22 years, he spent much of his early career in advertising with leading international agencies before a spell heading up the marketing of Hilton Worldwide in the Arabian Gulf between 1998 and 2002. In 2003, he founded Insignia Worldwide, said to be the world's first brand enrichment company specializing in travel and tourism. The company has been the creative force behind 120 hotels and resorts across the globe and 145 restaurants and lifestyle venues. Finally, I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Stella Foti, founder and managing director of Wellbeing Escapes, the specialist online travel agent for wellness and the pioneers of wellness travel for the past 10 years. When I was doing a bit of research on Stella, I noticed that Ruby Wax, the TV celebrity, describes her company as the John Lewis of healthy breaks, which I thought was a fabulous quote there. So that's our panel for today. So as you can see, we've gathered a panel of truly leading experts in the field of wellness for this masterclass in the art of wellness, building your business and getting the message across. Now, of course, the session today is much about you, and I want all of you to get as much out of today and the opportunity to hear the views and advice of our experts today. So if you do have any questions at any time, any observations, do feel free to put your hand up, let us see that, and what we'll do is we'll go out to the floor and ask you to raise your questions with the panel direct. However, let us start with a defining question for today's session. I'll ask this to all our panel members. You're all involved in the wellness sector in some form, be it in marketing it, selling it, promoting it, organising it, or the consumer's experience of it. But the thing I've always struggled with, personally, is the definition of wellness itself. So they say that the starting point of any marketing strategy is to define the product. So for each of you, and let's start with you, Gaurav, and we'll work our way down this way if we can, what is the definition of wellness?
Thank you very much for that. So first, I think it's more important to ask, what is the definition of travel as opposed to wellness travel? And I think, it's a very mutated term at this current point between how we look at wellness and how we define that space. For me, number one, travel. Every journey that you look at, one level you could say every journey is different because everybody travels for different reasons. But I think there's a certain universal truth. First of all, travel, in my opinion, every journey is exactly the same. Travel is the ultimate expression of self-advancement. And if you look at it from that point of view, we all travel to either improve our lives, enrich our experiences, and so forth. Similarly, you could say that every journey is a wellness journey. In a way, you're improving your well-being. And for me, the definition of wellness in context of this is it's basically an evolution of your well-being as a human being and enriching those experiences in various different manners. You also have what I call unwell tourism. And unwell tourism is, in my opinion, what I call medical tourism. So there's a clear distinction between medical tourism and wellness tourism. Okay. Stella, now you sell this concept every day, so what's the definition?
Yeah, well, we only sell wellness. So, and what I've realised is wellness is very individual and it's very personal. So it could be anything from going and getting fit on a holiday or having healthy food or doing a massive integrated detox program And I think it's all about, as Gaurav said, it's the betterment, the advancement of the individual. So it is a personal thing. It's at different layers. It could be from a very simple, just, I'm going to go and get a little bit fit, right through to learning a new skill, doing meditation, and a really integrated wellness program.
Okay. And Peter?
I quite like a simple approach, and I've always had a tiny bit of an issue with wellness, because even working at a day spa where our guests come for 2 to 3 hours on average, and even in the hotel they might come for a couple of nights, and I've always worried, how can you promise the world that people are going away absolutely feeling refreshed, revived, all those wonderful words, in that 2 or 3 hours. So we've been always really careful not to overpromise what people are going to gain and the types of experiences. So we just very often use, as long as our guests feel better when they leave our spa than when they arrived, then we've helped them on that road towards wellness. But we're slightly careful on what we promise and what we don't promise.
Okay. Alistair?
I'd have the answer in all of those. I don't think it matters what I think wellness is. I think it matters what your customers think wellness is. And I'm reminded really of wellness about some work that we did with a very big brand about what green meant. And we identified 32 different ideas about greens, and that spanned from animal husbandry to CO2 emissions, and in a way, the most important thing about these terms is that they mean different things to different people. So it's fundamentally important. It doesn't matter what I think it means. It's fundamentally important you understand what wellness means, and you listen very, very carefully to your customers to understand that they mean the same thing. Otherwise, your communications, business is so simple, everything we're doing is so simple. All we're trying to do is make relationships and maintain them. That means you have to listen before you speak. So if you listen and really understand what people mean by these things and what motivates them, that's when you make communications that connect them. So I think really we're saying pretty much the same thing.
Well, what do we think the public think wellness is then?
Well, I think it's about providing a solution to what their problem is. It's the same as with anything. So certainly with our clients, they'll call up and they don't really know what they want. They don't know where they want to go. They don't know what they want to do. But they have an issue that they have to deal with. And it could be from, I'm so highly stressed, I need something to help me relax and chill, or I really need to lose weight because I know I'm unhealthy. Or it could be a medical problem, and they're looking for other means, other ways to deal with it rather than going to a doctor or a hospital. So it's about providing that solution. Ultimately, it's about giving somebody the ability to lead a happy and healthy life, and that is really through, having an experience when they go away, when they're away from their normal environment where they have all their daily stresses. And being in an environment where they have, something that helps them deal with their problem, a solution to their issue.
Can you still be a wellness business if you don't concentrate or focus predominantly on spa?
Yeah, I think you can. Yeah.
I think if you look at the global stats, I think it's about $500 billion spent in the wellness space, of which only 40% of that is actually on spa. I think wellness is a far more encompassing, integrated proposition.
But what's the other 60% then?
It's spread across, from experiences, food, hiking, nature, etc. It's not everything is bedded into a spa experience alone. And there are various different, components to that. I think wellness needs a clear definition for sure. And I think it is driven, and it's very hard to provide a sort of one sort of definition that sweeps across various different markets. Because if you look at how people consume wellness, you have at various life stages, you have different needs. For a young person, wellness might actually mean going clubbing. It doesn't necessarily mean, disconnection and whatnot. But I think wellness is rooted in two principles of disconnection, which means it's an inward journey. And when it's an inward journey, it's about mind, body, and soul. And within context of that, it's about articulating a set of experiences that allow you to evolve your own sort of well-being is again not the right word. It's your sense of self-advancement and betterment for yourself. And I think it's not necessarily medical tourism, which is again, I think even destination brands struggle with that. It's not medical tourism. It's preventative. It is a lifestyle proposition. But I think if you look at the words lifestyle, luxury, wellness, all three of them need to be, challenged today.
Yes.
I think
yes. So are there some core ingredients? If you're starting a business, most of our audience here are looking to either start or grow into wellness. What would be the three key ingredients they might be required now?
I think first of all, you've got to define your sort of promise, something which is your enduring essence, which you can relate to. And I don't think it's because every second person is launched a hotel and then every hotel, and I'm talking about hotel operators in particular, that a spa is thrown into the mix just so that we can tick a box, so we have wellness people coming in. I think to have a wellness proposition embedded into your brand, you have to have an authentic and meaningful promise associated with it, which means you've got to deliver that in a seamless manner. And in many cases, you don't need to be having you don't need spas. So a lot of city hotels will throw in the spa because it's part of the operating model that was put in place in an Excel sheet. It doesn't really necessarily command all of that. Maybe the focus is purely about activity, and it's having a lot more gymnasiums and the right sort of lifestyle programs embedded into your narrative. I think number one, you have to have an enduring essence. You've got to not try and be everything to everybody. Yeah. And that's a real inward glance. You've got to reflect on this to see whether it's really relevant to your brand strategy. Number two, if you're going to make a promise, then you've got to make sure you deliver on it. I think this is very important because today we live in what I call digitally fragmented lifestyles. We outsource everything, our memories to digital devices. So for me to be able to connect to you, you have to say something extremely memorable. And then I think that's really the sort of core pillars that really are the foundation and the starting point of any meaningful story to be told to somebody.
Okay, Stella, is there constant features that your customers ask for?
Well, my customers are what we call primary wellness customers. They're looking for a primary wellness experience, and that means they need an integrated experience. So I agree, spa doesn't necessarily mean wellness, and I actually get really irritated by hotels that have a spa and then automatically put wellness at the end of it, because that isn't wellness at all, being able to have a massage or a treatment. So it's the integration of making sure if somebody goes somewhere that they have the environment to have peace, that they have healthy food that can complement the treatments they're doing, that they have activities that allow them to have healthy activities, to do a little bit of exercise, whatever that means for them. So that's my particular customers. So that's what they need. But I agree, it has to be about authenticity, and I know that word's been overdone too, but it's about delivering on the promise. So if you say, for example, if you run a yoga retreat, you may not have a spa, you may just have a yoga retreat, but you make sure that you give the best yoga and your yoga teacher is properly qualified and can give the right advice, and you can complement that in a nice environment, peaceful environment. Whatever it is that you do, it has to be true and authentic, and it has to deliver, because customers see right through it, and for them it's more than a holiday. When they're going on certainly our type of holiday, a well-being escape, it's about, they have a very high expectation of what they want when they come back and what they want to have achieved. And if something isn't right, it's a real disappointment to them. So it's about being true. Don't just put the word wellness on everything because you happen to have a spa or you have someone who can deliver some treatments. Think it right through. The other thing that I have an issue with, and I see this a lot around the world, you'll have hotels who try and, or spas, for example, who try and deliver something which isn't authentic to their region. Stick to what it is that is authentic and true to your region. So if you're sitting in Greece, don't try and deliver an Ayurvedic spa. If you have amazing countryside around you, then focus on that. That alone is a fantastic thing. You don't have to have a treatment list of 50 different treatments to deliver a wellness experience. So for me, it's about that, and that the customers can see right through it.
Yeah, I like the use of the authentic word there, Peter. You have got two thermal natural. So you're very much about authenticity.
Yeah, it's what Bath's all about. It's how Bath got its name, are the natural thermal waters. So our absolute key offer is simply bathing in the natural thermal waters and actually hopefully then feeling relaxed as a result of that. Every year we carry out a visitor survey, and for the last number of years, when we ask people either what were you looking forward to most or what have you enjoyed most, inevitably, it's spending time with friends and a little bit of escaping and relaxing. We know how frenetic life is these days. And for those, anything from 2, 3, 4, 5 hours that they may be there, bathing in the waters, hopefully enjoying their nice treatment, it's just getting away for that period of time. And genuinely just feeling better about it and spending quality time with friends or family. The other thing, Thermae Bath Spa is right in the centre of Bath. For those of you maybe who haven't been there before, it's 100 yards from the Roman Baths, 200 yards from Bath Abbey, 150 yards from Marks and Spencer's. It's right in the centre. So it's not in a beautiful countryside location or a seaside location away from everything. So we've had to create that experience, recognising we're in the middle of a World Heritage Site. But one thing then, over the last couple of years, which we've worked really hard at, and I love your phrase integration, and we're just saying, okay, people might enjoy the 2, 3, 4, 5 hours that they're with us, but how can Bath itself as a destination, how can we give this integrated offer from Bath itself? So over the last while, along with other partners, whether from the destination marketing organisation Bath Tourism, right through to Bath Festivals, Bath Restaurants Association, the National Trust, the Constable Voluntary Warden Service, we've joined forces with them and just saying, right, what makes up a successful spa destination? And we then developed almost like an offer, and there were 4 key strands to that offer. One was exercising the mind. So in terms of exercising the mind, it's really just enjoying all the cultural things that are happening in the city, whether it be the theatre, the music festival, the literature festival, and so on. One was then exercising the body. This is outside of the spa environment. Yes. So whether that's going for a lovely walk up on the hills, following the skyline walk around Bath, going for a cycle along the canal towpath. We then had one just called socialising style, because from ever since the Romans came to Bath, all 2,000 years ago, or the Georgians in the 18th century, they were there to have fun as well. It wasn't an austere, environment. So, what they did, I feel very tame in comparison with what the Georgians did 200 or 300 years ago. So it's just actually talking about the coffee houses today, and where people can just enjoy socialising. And then the fourth aspect of how we're integrating throughout Bath is actually what we've just called the therapeutic landscape. And it's actually recognising the setting of Bath being in the River Avon, the 7 hills surrounding the city. So it's working with the landscape, and so making the spa part of the experience of Bath and looking at those 4 integrated strands as well.
Excellent. So what I'm picking up already is about being authentic. It's about working with the attributes you naturally have to build the wellness business.
I think if you don't have something to deliver, then you've got nothing to sell.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, you have to have something right. And whether that is about, I mean, my guess is absolutely, it's about locality. It's got to be absolutely right. But one of the things we come across I would not sell wellness. You may have to use it for SEO, but I would not sell that.
When you say that, you wouldn't sell the word wellness or the concept?
What you need to do is sell a sensory experience to people. Because when people go to destinations, and as individuals, we've worked with a lot of brands. In fact, we've done a lot of work with people who run exhibitions. People buy multi-sensory experiences, and hospitality and travel is one of the brilliant businesses in the world. Because when people consume what we have to offer and what you have to offer, they have a multi-sensory experience. It's usually involving something very strongly kinesthetic. They're feeling things, they're smelling things, they're tasting things, they're seeing things, and they're hearing things. But when it comes, so you must have that right, and that whole experience must be right. Without that, you might as well walk away. But then, when it comes to getting people to come to enjoy that experience, you've only really got two senses you can work with. And that's what you look like and what your voice is like. You can't communicate smell to mass people over distance. You can't communicate how you feel over distance. So when you're trying to get people to come to enjoy this multi-sensory experience, it's very, very important that you use sensory language. And this isn't just something about intellect. If I mention a word like kick or kiss, I've just fired up your motor systems. Wellness is a conceptual idea, and that means our brains have to work harder to understand what is this, and we all have different ideas about what that is. But sensory language connects automatically with people because we feel very slightly. This is why we respond very, very strongly. And for a lot of the work that we do, we use the sensory, we measure sensory language if we're listening to millions of words off social media, or we're conducting face-to-face research with people. We actually measure the sensory language that people are using in order to measure their levels of emotional engagement. And this goes so strong as to something like helpfulness. We've worked with a lot of banks, and people wanted to know what helpfulness was. Well, when we measured there was an emotional buying trick, what the emotional buying trigger was, it was very, very, very strongly that helpfulness was a massive missing conversation. So we managed to get them to change the language that they use. Instead of saying, if you've got a problem, you don't say, I know how you feel, or I see your point of view. You say, we've listened to what you've said, and we've had a conversation. And if you use language that is about hearing, then people connect that with the emotion of helpfulness. So use more sensory language. Understand the experience that people have.
What would be the key? If you're starting a business and we're building a wellness business, whether you're a tour operator, hotel or destination, what would be a starting block for a sensory?
The key starting block is to understand multisensory is better than single. So the more senses you can engage with, the stronger the offer that you have. And to use that language, to use your language to communicate sensual experiences and sensory experiences rather than conceptual ideas. So when we're talking about the inside of a business, ideas like authenticity are very, very strong. But people don't buy that idea because nobody knows what it means. So these are important concepts, but they're internal concepts. When you're communicating externally, it's really, really important that to make that emotional connection, because the language you're using is packed full of emotional punch, whether you mean it to be or not. So it's much better to get it right.
Is there a template? I mean, I'm fascinated with this. Is there a template word that triggers people? You said kick and kiss just a moment ago, and I could see that working in my mind straight away, just the different sensations. If you're a typical wellness business, regardless of big spa or activity-based, is there a word?
Wouldn't that be brilliant? I mean, we've worked with a big mobile company who said, tell us the one thing we need to do to encourage people to switch from one brand to another. And, we found those words. And we managed to get them to change out the second question you asked, how you change that by gender. But you have to listen. So we can't just pluck it out of the air. It depends on on what your customers feel and what they want and how they want to receive. Because if you listen to them really carefully, they're telling you every single thing you need to know. Don't ask, but if you ask them what they want, they'll tell you something, and just as likely they don't want it at all. Okay? Because as human beings, we're only aware of 5% of what we feel, but we base our buying decisions are based on what we feel.
So I'll add to that. I think the elephant in the room is really the conversation about the fracture in wellness tourism at a macro destination level.
Right.
Yeah, the fact that even governments don't understand wellness. And I think you'll find a severe fracture between public sector and private sector dialogue to understand. So if you're a tourism company from my neck of the woods, or if you had a hotel or a spa proposition, do you deal with the Ministry of Health? Do you deal with the Ministry of Tourism? Do you work with the Social Affairs team? Yeah. How do you actually navigate those waters? And I think what we need at a macro level is some level of classification system of wellness also, if you need to think about that. We have accolade systems for hospitality, whether they're 3-star, 4-star, or 5-star. I personally feel wellness in its nascency today also needs some sort of a standardized classification system which allows people to demystify this term. So, you have Michelin star restaurants. I think you have a similar process, and this is something that somebody needs to, and I think this is, whether it's WTDC, UNWTO, whoever drives these initiatives, but what we need to make life simple. And what happens is, even from a development cost, you talk about guest experiences, you have the word spa, which is again a mutated word. Some people will have 2 treatment rooms, which used to be a barber shop, but not necessarily a destination, spa experience. So I think even using the word spa should be very carefully bandied about by operators. And when you have such disparate levels of experiences, you can have an underwhelming experience for a guest or an overwhelming experience, and you don't have any consistency. I think these are the challenges customers have, which make them disengage with the wellness proposition, say, let's just go on holiday. Yes. And I think this is one of the challenges we face. And like any powerful destination brand, policy investment, brands and people, and infrastructure has to integrate. They all have to converge at one point to define wellness together.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on, because we can talk all day about the definition of wellness, and I suspect we still would be here next week talking about it without a conclusion necessarily. But let's move on to the fact of aiming our product at somebody. So we've decided we're in the wellness business. We've got authenticity as being a big part of it. We're building on the attributes we already have. What is the core market for wellness, would you say? Let's start off with you, Gaurav.
We call them the welderlies, the well-to-do elderlies. You see, if you look at it, there are certain universal truths here. Every human being wants to stay young. Every human being wants to consider themselves to be beautiful. Every human being, this transcends this, gender, culture, age, etc., and everybody wants to be artistic. So I think if you look at the universality of some of these principal things, the welderlies today are the big spenders, I think the over 50s, and I think that segment again has not been completely understood. And these well-to-do elderlies, if you look at it, they will on an average, again SRI stats, they will spend an average of $2,000 when they're international visitors to a destination, and they'll spend up to $650 per visit if they're domestic travelers. And when you look at stats like that, these are people who are very happy to invest back in themselves. A wellness journey is a rewarding journey. It's a way to pat yourself on the back for things that you've done, achieved, overcome, or aspire to do. So I think from that point of view, our focus on the elderly segment is critical. And I think also it's very hard. You can't really do, geo-targeted ethnicity mapping. I don't think there's an India strategy. There's an Asian strategy or the European customer. I think you're dealing with global nomads, people who travel all over the world, and there are certain cues that people will aspire to, and those cues for me are always rooted in the destination's core value proposition, which is nature, culture, and so forth. So it's all sort of wrapped around that.
Okay. Stella, is it welderlies only?
No, sorry.
Fair enough.
I had a feeling.
No, it's different segments, but they all want different things. So The younger segment, the millennials, they are very up to date with what they want from their wellness experience. They're very educated, and when they go on holiday, they really want to continue with what they're doing when they're at home. They tend to be a much healthier generation than maybe my generation was at that age. So they want to have instant access to wellness experiences no matter where they are, and they want to integrate them as part of their overall travel. You have our main market are I would say from 35 to 55, not quite elderlies, but
elderlies being one of them,
including some of the elderlies. And these are the people I've determined need wellness more than anyone, and these people are successful, they work very hard, and they're very stressed. And stress has by far been the biggest issue that's affecting this group of people. So they're looking for a more integrated experience. They're more of the primary wellness traveller, and when they go away, they want to completely escape everything that they have at home. That's a different group. The Welderlies, I think, there's a very big opportunity around the Welderlies that hasn't been fully targeted yet, and I think there's this group of people over 50 who, as you say, want to have an active retirement, want to be active for the rest of their lives, and they want to have as many experiences as possible. And they want to be healthy. They want to be healthy so that they can achieve these things. And we're seeing more of these clients coming to us now who have high disposable incomes, and they're saying, help me have a healthy lifestyle, and I can learn that when I'm away. So when I can come back to my day-to-day, I can just really experience everything that I could have done when I was 30, for example, but I couldn't then because I was working too hard. So that's a big target market which I think hasn't been fully exploited yet. I think everyone's chasing the millennials, but that older group there's a big opportunity around that group.
We also have to be mindful. I don't think millennials today have any loyalty.
No.
They'll go to the next best thing and keep jumping. Yeah. So you've also got to evaluate in your business strategy your profitability over a customer's lifetime. How many times can you bring them back? Yes. Also, so I think there's a paradox here, because the young ones will live. You have maybe 30 years of engagement with them as potential relationship. Maybe with the elderlies, it's a different number. So I think it can't be oversimplified. There needs to be a little degree of thinking.
But if you were building a business, whether you're a destination, a tour operator, or a hotel, resort, spa, is there a particular age group, a demographic that you would say, right, this is the easiest to get to?
Yeah, 35 to 55.
And they're the most likely.
Because that's our clients. Yeah, they're the people.
That's your clients, but yeah. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I think it's I think, yes, there is a critical amount of, a critical segment of 35, 50, but it's a very broad one too. Yeah. And I don't think it works like that. I think you need to be extremely specific and targeted in your approach, depending on it's the same way as how you optimize your revenue strategy in a hotel. You have multiple channels and you have multiple segments. In a similar space like this, I think you will obviously have your 35 to 55 people with disposable income, either time-rich, etc. So, these are people you would engage with. But I think you need to have a very specific and relevant strategy depending on your proposition. And that's how you would work it. There's a lovely hotel in Australia which does wellness, but they call it retoxing. It's not detoxing. They actually bring young people to get drunk. So it all depends. It all depends what wellness is in context to all of these things.
That's a really good. The irony of you not hearing what I was saying, we're the words people, has not escaped us. But I think that's a really good point about that proposition. I mean, what is your key proposition again and again and again? And so you need to understand what people want. I mean, we did some work with the national state, and we're listening to a lot of what national states were talking about. And this was almost, the great dominions and their parts. And one of the things that's very important to remember is that it's important to sell what people want to buy. I mean, what we discovered is that Australia was leading, just the things that they were talking about in terms of their propositions, they were leading on art and history and culture to Europeans. You know, I'm sorry, but if we want art and history and culture, we'll stay at home. The problem was, of course, there was a state-driven agenda that was coming through. And so it's very easy to get sucked into this. And I would really say that you should be listening to the alternatives. If people are making choices and regularly making choices between to come to where you want them to be or they're going to other places, you know, then you don't want to be saying the same things. You need to say something about you. And don't get dragged into just saying those same old things. Because my guess is that when you explain where you want people to go or where you want people to come, I bet you do it really well when you're talking to people face to face. But as soon as your fingers hit that keyboard or you get people to come in and throw some words to the wind, you would never ever do that with images, okay? And that people just turn into this corporate type speak. You know, there's something that happens in our brains that we just start. So I would be conversational. I would make connections with people. And that's clearly what, and you know, retoxing and Australia, you know, this is going together. You know, we go to Australia to retox, not for art and culture.
But Alistair, how do you go about listening? Because you've mentioned the word listening several times, that we've got to listen to our customer. I totally subscribe to that. But if you're starting a business in wellness, how do you go about listening? What do you do?
Well, the most important thing, we listen to people like the psychologists, you know, but psychologists are very expensive and they're also very slow. So that's why we use software, because that can listen to a lot of stuff really quickly, and it gives you the same results time and time again. Depending on the size of your business, you know, it's important to not hear what people say, but to really listen. So I'll give you a couple of clues. Think about the senses. As many open questions as possible, because the more people talk, the more they reveal about themselves. So don't present a presupposed answer to people. Leave it as open as possible, and then just listen to the senses that they use. So are they visual? They're using visual language, then start to use visual language. Are they using feeling language, which is obviously very, very big in this sector? So when we say don't look to come out with facts, because it's likely that those facts aren't going to be true, but look to come out with feelings. And I would suggest that, I mean, the science is very, very clear. Go with your gut feeling, okay? Don't overcomplicate. Don't over-rationalise. Go with your gut feeling and test it and try it. And if it works, keep it going. And if it isn't working, alter it and be prepared to alter it.
So should you be doing this with your customers who've experienced your product? So they've come to your wellness establishment and you ask open-ended questions in a survey or something?
Absolutely. I would not do a survey.
Right, okay.
Speak to them face to face.
Right.
Have a conversation with them, because that's a great advantage. When you have got them within that experience, that is the best time to understand what they're feeling, thinking, smelling, hearing, or seeing about that experience. Because I'm not just going to say feeling, because that's just one sense. So it's a great opportunity. And they're also the people that have bought, and you're going to be able to sell to more people like that. And the most important thing about them is they're going to be promote. If they're enjoying what they've got and your experience, they will promote for you.
So Peter, you've got an establishment. So do you do some of these things?
Yeah, we do. We definitely have conversations, and I was trying to think of the word that probably comes out more from our guests than any other word in terms of either what they've enjoyed or what they want to enjoy. Is actually the word relax. Yeah. They just want to relax. And there's all sorts of other things as well, but if you asked, I would say 80% of the responses would have that word somewhere within it. It was interesting what you were saying about the guests, and it's incredible. The guests who come to us, they are almost equal between 25 to 35, 35 to 45, 45 to 55, 55 to 65. The only slight difference is it's definitely a slightly older age profile during the week than at weekends, which you can probably see some of the reasons for doing that. The other thing where I think we've got a little bit of a responsibility is that it would appear that about 50% of our guests are coming to us as a spa as a first-time user of a spa. The other 50% have been to spa, they know how they work. And actually, we just have that little bit of a responsibility about introducing them to what spas are like, and then giving them an opportunity to go and try some of those other lovely experiences, whether it be Dubai or the types of holidays that you offer. And so, in a way, because we know they're first-time users, the actual explanation and the words we have to use, we have to break down those barriers, because they actually come to us thinking, oh, how do I behave? What do I wear? What am I supposed? How am I supposed to conduct myself? And there's a real nervousness, especially with the guys. The number of guys who come and you can see them walking in and thinking, this isn't for me. Yeah. And yet I bump into them very often on the way going out. They say, look, actually, that was lovely. And they tend to be some of our biggest advocates for the future. And our biggest growth has been actually from guys, even though the majority is still female.
I think we could share some findings about differences in gender. I mean, it's something we have to be reasonably careful about because of the way people talk about it at the moment. But as business people, listen, let's just stick very, very close with reality about how people are, not how we want people to be. What we've discovered very, very consistently, women are much more about relationships and much more sensory. Men are about achievement and success. So I think that I would suggest that it's much easier to sell an outcome to men than but for a woman, it's much easier to sell the sensory experience and relationships. So I think that crosses all the sectors that we've worked in. And we are consistently finding this in language patterns. I mean, women will use 80,000 more personal pronouns a year than men.
Wow. Can I just
yes, please.
Agree with that, actually, because our male clients, they are about achieving a goal. So they come in and they want to either get fit or they want to detox because they think that it's going to help them with their performance at work. It's all about achievement, whereas the females are much more kinesthetic. It's about feeling and how am I going to feel when I'm there.
But who's driving it? Is it like in traditional holidays, the female of a unit, the female is the one who normally picks the holiday and drives the family. Yeah. Is that the same in wellness?
Yeah, pretty much. It is. But you do have lots of men who come to us on their own, actually, and that's a growing segment right now. Men are investing in this as a separate holiday to go on their own because they think it's going to help them with their achievement at work or to be able to train for a specific sporting event or whatever it is that they're doing.
Most of the research we've seen, and this is a really interesting one when people talk about equal pay and so on is coming into right on this agenda, is that women have 60% decisions on payment, on spending money, and they have a further strong influence over another 20%. In other words, men only spend 20% purely discretionary of what they have to spend. Okay. Which is an interesting political argument, isn't it, about there about is actually money about
I think we're getting on thin ice here.
But this is reality, and we've heard this. We did a lot of work with Adidas, and this has worked absolutely firmly with them. We've checked it across all areas to do with personal, with stuff like wellness and personal attraction and all the rest of it, and it's absolutely consistent. This is a really consistent thing. So I think if you can tap into men, that's great. But I'm pretty sure that particularly with those older age groups, that you won't get that many men. But I mean, again, maybe that's a great opportunity if you can have 10% of 20% of the market, you're doing pretty well.
Very well. Now, we've only got 10 minutes left, and I just want to make sure that you guys feel like you're getting your money's worth. Has anyone got any questions for our panel here? Any questions at all? Oh, yes, gentleman at the back there. I don't know if... there's a microphone literally there, sir.
Thank you. Are there any specific geographic areas that are of more interest now than others? I come from Central America, from Guatemala, which is a small country that was in the news recently because of big political changes. But normally it's not a destination that people really think of, yet it offers a tremendous amount of diversity and pre-Hispanic heritage, and it's a true, it's a natural place for a destination spa. But does the geographical context of a place really have that much to do in telling the story of a wellness destination?
Gaurav, let's take that first, and then I'll come to you.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the destination is very relevant in context of this. And I think, again, I've got some stats here with me. Latin America, Asia, and the Middle East are considered to be the growth markets now because they haven't caught on with what America and Europe has offered as a sort of integrated wellness proposition to traditional travelers. I think definitely you have to be true to the destination proposition. I think wellness brands are a very fragile category, and they really rely very heavily on, and I think destination marketing companies, DMCs, have a profoundly important role to play in making sure a destination's integrated value proposition is articulated and promoted effectively. If you're a wellness operator, working with the tourism board is extremely critical, so you can, align with them and develop a destination-wide experience which can be promoted. It's there's a certain benefit in being a collective when you're in the wellness category, not necessarily being completely insular, because you do have experiences that transcend the resort, the spa. You're talking about culinary wellness, you're talking about activities. So I think working very closely with DMCs, because wellness is, the biggest challenge with wellness also is it's not easy for a customer to make it tangible. You can't touch and feel wellness as effectively as, let's say, going on a beach holiday, because you know exactly what you're getting. So this multidimensionality is challenging for customers. And then the second aspect is wellness is also considered to be quite dull and plain. It's like vanilla, so there is an obligation for operators to be more enchanting and making it a little bit more exciting to explain that you can, it's not just always about eating quinoa and doing yoga every morning at 5. So I think there is an obligation for wellness to be refreshed and made more youthful.
Excellent. Stella.
Okay, well, traditionally, from a kind of practical perspective, certainly from our business, Asia has been the place where wellness has really thrived. And that's to do with the culture there. It's the nurturing, caring, kind of culture around that to allow people to go somewhere, have a wellness experience, really looked after. Now, again, just from a personal experience, our clients, when they call us, they're not hell-bent on the destination. They're more interested in the experience. So they haven't decided when they call where they're going to go. They're not calling to say, oh, I want to go to Thailand, or I want to go to the Middle East, or I want to go here or there. They're saying, this is what I have to deal with. Send me somewhere that I can have a solution to my issue. And so it's actually about the product. It's about having a destination spa. It's about having the product available in the different markets. And then if you're in a safe environment and a safe destination, there is no reason, I believe, that you can't market it as a wellness destination if you have the product available for you in that particular market. South America, there is a shortage. There's a shortage of wellness products in South America, and people ask for it. And certainly from my knowledge, there isn't enough out there. So please let me know if you get anything going.
There you go. Now, Peter, you are a destination, and for 30-odd years, it was a spa town in name only.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've never been to Guatemala, but I think it's such a brilliant place to go to for a wellness type of a holiday. Certainly Bath or Bath Spa has got thousands of years of history as a spa destination using the natural thermal waters. Interestingly, though, our parent company, as of about 2 years ago, is a company called YTL, who has about 9 or 10 beautiful spa resorts in Malaysia, Borneo, and and they started off from almost nothing. But what they focused on, as well, which helped to make up the experience, was the local environment, the local traditions, the local culture. They then developed their whole range of treatments based on those local traditions as well. So they used their products and ingredients were all from that area. So, I'm sure you would look at that same concept, in your home country. And the other thing that they've done really well is then told a wonderful story about it. As well as just being the products and the pure experience, they've told the story. And that actually, I think for many people, gets a little bit of the interest, especially when you're maybe a fledgling destination as well.
Excellent. Now, Alistair, very quickly, if you can just add to that, anything that you want to add to?
Listen to these wise people.
Very good. We've got another couple of questions. Okay, we're running out of time, so I'll take this question here, and then we'll come to you, sir.
I think this is primarily a question for Stella. Mindfulness is a new, very hot topic, and what I'd like to know is there a demand for mindfulness meditation retreats? Because I've just started a retreats holiday business based on that, and I'd like to know.
Okay, well, it's I love that question. It's my personal passion, mindfulness and meditation. And a number of years ago, we created a range of mindfulness packages or holidays, and it absolutely flopped. Nobody was interested in it because I think we were just too early with it. But now it's become something that people ask for. They ask for it as part of an overall experience rather than just mindfulness. So I'm always aware of that when I speak to people about that. If you're offering retreats, I would recommend that you offer other things too, as well as mindfulness. Don't keep it, because your market will become smaller and smaller and smaller. And there are some people who are really into that, but it's not a huge market yet. Yet I think it will develop in the future, but still at this point it's part of, again, that integrated experience.
Excellent. Okay, sir, just the last question here.
A similar question. We heard a lot about well-being in body, but how do you deliver well-being in spirituality and philosophy?
Can I take it again? I'll take it again. It's available in certain places. It's not for everybody. There are some people who are looking for that. They're looking for that spiritual experience. But it's, again, right now, from a market perspective, it's very niche. And I think, again, from our client base, I've seen as people get older, they're looking more for that spiritual experience. And then you've got, the younger people who are kind of dabbling in it, playing around with it. Right now, it's available usually in the Asian markets, in the Asian countries with their offering there. But yes, again, something I see happening in the future, but not quite yet, certainly from Europe.
Okay, excellent. Right, now we're almost at an end, but I just want to make sure that everyone in the room goes away feeling that they've taken a couple of key things out of today, if they're, whatever phase they are in building their wellness offering. So if you were to leave the audience with one thing that they need to do to harness the wellness concept and grow their business, what would it be? Let's start off with you.
For me, it's difficult to compress everything into one thing.
Well, if you could do two, that would be great.
Yeah, so I think you have to be true to the essence of who you are. I believe in destination marketing, destination branding, whether it's wellness or any other category. There are no USPs in destination branding because destinations are never positioned to be comparative. They're superlative in nature. They are true to themselves. They don't care what happens up and down the road in other parts of the world. So I think the principle of engagement is to define and discover and define your enduring essence and then remain true to it. The fastest way to fail is by trying to please everybody. So
yeah, that's definitely a theme that's come out through this session, I feel. Yeah. Stella?
Yeah, exactly the same. Be authentic. Don't try to deliver something that you can't, because clients will see right through it. They'll see right through it before they come, and then after they come, they'll be disappointed, and that's not a good way to be. So stick to what you're good at and what's authentic in your region, in your area, and develop your wellness theme around that.
Excellent. Peter?
I like the word you used earlier about integration, and I think that's something that has made me think a lot more about, as well as just the lovely spa treatments in this case that we can offer, but it's the totality of the experience, whether it be the exercise, the eating and everything, so it's the whole combined offer.
Okay, and Alistair?
I'd say, I'd echo the authenticity thing from the inside. I'd say spend a lot of time thinking about how to communicate about what you have to offer. Communicate clearly. Do not just spend all of that time and investment and all the rest of it and then just throw the words to the wind and hope that they stick. Make sure that your propositions are based around what you genuinely have that's different about you and what you can offer, and use more sensory language. Don't just fall into conceptual language and start talking to people like they're robots. So tell your story, find your voice, and and people will connect to that.
Thank you. Well, I'm sure you agree that we've had a real masterclass from 4 absolute experts. I chair quite a few panels. I've got to tell you, I know that I'm in the presence of wellness people. They're the most relaxed panel I've ever had to deal with. No tension, no prima donnas, very, very easy to work with, so that's good. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will be having our poll, which should come up on the slide any moment.